How the grim sleeper was finally caught. For over 2 decades, a shadow loomed over South Los Angeles. A serial killer operated in silence, victimizing vulnerable women and leaving families desperate for answers. His name, Lonnie Franklin Jr., or, as the world came to know him, the Grim Sleeper. This chilling tale isn't just about the horrifying crimes he committed, but how modern science exposed his darkest secrets. Today, we unravel the story of how Franklin evaded capture for years, but despite his cunning, one mistake, one crucial connection, ultimately led to his downfall. It's a tale of persistence, groundbreaking forensics, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Prepare yourself as we dive into one of the most infamous cases of our time, where the line between hunter and hunted blurred, all thanks to an extraordinary forensic tool that changed the game forever. Between 1985 and 2007, women began disappearing from the streets of South Los Angeles. Their bodies, often discarded in alleyways or dumpsters, told a story too gruesome to ignore. They weren't random victims. They were targeted. Mothers, daughters, and sisters, often from marginalized communities, their lives stolen without mercy. The city trembled under the weight of fear and grief as investigators struggled to track the predator responsible. For the families of these women, hope faded with each unanswered question. The media gave him his chilling alias, the Grim Sleeper. This name stemmed from a perceived 14-year hiatus in his crimes, but was he truly inactive, or just getting better at covering his tracks? Through their investigation, law enforcement had gathered pieces of a sinister puzzle, the most vital clue, DNA evidence left behind at several crime scenes. This small, invisible trail of evidence could have been the key to locking up the Grim Sleeper, if only they'd had someone to match it to. For years, the DNA languished in the database, unable to link to any known individuals. Each failed attempt felt like another door closing, leaving detectives frustrated and the cases growing colder with every passing year. The Grim Sleeper had become the ghost of South LA, and his legacy of fear continued unchecked. That is, until 2010, when science stepped in to rewrite the rules. Enter familial DNA searching, a forensic revelation that turned law enforcement's frustration into hope. Unlike traditional DNA methods that look for exact matches, familial DNA casts a wider net, identifying potential relatives of suspects whose DNA already exists in criminal databases. This powerful tool emerged as a last-ditch effort in the Grim Sleeper case, an unrelenting push to end the nightmare once and for all. Despite its promise, familial DNA came with ethical controversies. Could such technology invade innocent people's privacy? Was it even legal? Questions swirled, but the LAPD pressed forward, armed with cutting-edge science and determination. This decision would change everything. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A routine database search revealed something highly unusual, a match. But this wasn't Lonnie Franklin Jr.'s DNA. It belonged to his son. Franklin's son had entered the system for a different offense, completely unrelated to his father's crimes. Yet his genetic profile bore a striking resemblance to the one tied to the Grim Sleeper. This familial connection confirmed one thing: the killer was someone close to him, someone in his own bloodline. Investigators suddenly found themselves on the trail of Lonnie Franklin Jr., a man whose double life was about to come crumbling down. Once Lonnie Franklin Jr. became the prime suspect, the LAPD launched a covert surveillance operation. They couldn't afford to alarm him or allow the possibility for another heinous act. His comfortable, unassuming life hid a monstrous secret, but undercover detectives were watching his every move. To seal their case, they needed a direct sample of Franklin's DNA. That moment came when investigators collected items he had discarded, objects like pizza crusts and napkins. It was their golden opportunity. When the results returned, there was no doubt. The DNA collected from Lonnie Franklin Jr. matched the evidence from the crime scenes, a perfect, devastating match. In July 2010, the hunt finally ended. Law enforcement stormed into Franklin's home and arrested him, shattering the facade of the quiet, seemingly ordinary man. The details of his arrest shook the city. Inside his home, they uncovered photographs of numerous women, many of whom police suspected could be additional victims. Everywhere they looked, evidence seemed to whisper of more darkness than they'd anticipated. Victims' families felt a bittersweet mix of relief and sorrow. On one hand, the grim sleeper was off the streets. On the other, the absence of their loved ones hung heavier now than ever. After years of anguish, Franklin's trial began, running from February to May 2016. Prosecutors relied heavily on DNA evidence, presenting it as the cornerstone of their case. Photos, crime scene materials, and witness testimonies painted a damning picture of Franklin's depravity. The jury's verdict was resounding, guilty of 10 murders. Franklin was sentenced to death, bringing a measure of justice for the families who had spent decades in despair. Yet, the cold truth remained. The true number of his victims might never be known. Even after his conviction, many questions lingered. What about the other women in the photographs discovered at Franklin's residence? Were they more victims whose cases had slipped through the cracks? The possibility that Lonnie Franklin Jr. had eluded accountability for even more atrocities left a chilling reminder of how serial killers can exploit flaws in the justice system. The Grim Sleepers case wasn't just about solving gruesome crimes. It was about the revolutionary role familial DNA has played in law enforcement. While traditional forensic approaches failed, this cutting-edge method cast the decisive spotlight on Franklin, proving its effectiveness in identifying elusive suspects. Since his capture, familial DNA has been used in numerous high-profile cases. It represents a leap forward, but also stirs fierce debates about privacy, ethics, and policing boundaries. Still, for many victims' families, it's a vital tool, one that provides hope where there once was none. The Grim Sleeper case is more than a cautionary tale. It's a wake-up call for systemic change. For years, Franklin preyed on the vulnerable, his crimes shrouded in silence. Many argue that institutional shortcomings and a lack of focus on victims from marginalized communities allowed him to evade justice for so long. It's a dreadful reminder of how society can turn a blind eye to certain neighborhoods when it comes to crime and justice. This case underscores the urgent need for equality and how investigations are prioritized and pursued. As we reflect on the Grim Sleeper's capture, we're reminded of how far forensic science has come and how far it may still go. Technology like familial DNA and genetic genealogy has solved countless cases that were once thought unsolvable. These tools offer a path to justice, but only if they're applied responsibly. Moving forward, the lessons learned from this case must inspire us to keep refining our systems, ensuring no stone is left unturned for victims and their families. Lonnie Franklin Jr.'s capture brought an end to one of Los Angeles' darkest chapters. His crimes left scars not only on his victims, but also on an entire community. Yet, this story also highlights the resilience of investigators, the power of science, and the enduring pursuit of justice. As true crime enthusiasts, it's our responsibility to shine a light on these stories, not for their shock value, but to honor those whose lives were stolen and the breakthroughs that made justice possible. Let the Grim Sleepers case remind us that even in the darkest of times, hope, science, and determination can expose the truth. Justice may be delayed, but with relentless effort, it is never truly out of reach.